Good morning. My name is Noelani Pearlhunt, and I'm the CEO of Hand in Hand Parenting. I'm excited to get to know you today. Parenting is the most important role that I have, and I bet it is for all of you. What if it was just a little bit easier? Hand in Hand Parent Club gives advice, support, and caring for the toughest times for the most important role you have. Today, we're launching the Hand in Hand Parent Club. In a few minutes, we'll give you a preview of the personal support that you will receive with Hand in Hand Parent Club with a Facebook Live with Hand in Hand founder, Patty Whiffler. But before that, let me tell you a little bit more about the Parent Club. It's a membership that gives you the absolute best information we have to offer delivered to your inbox every week. With that, we have the added support of a weekly coaching Facebook Live and Facebook phone calls, a supportive parenting community, and free access to our Setting Limits and Building Cooperation course, and Q&A sessions with Patty Whiffler, the founder of Hand in Hand. And all of that is accessible right on your phone. Patty Whiffler has developed a revolutionary parenting approach based on a fresh understanding of the way relationships in the family affect children's behavior and the ability to learn. She founded the nonprofit Hand in Hand Parenting in 1989, helping thousands of families over the world. Now for what you've been waiting for, Patty Whiffler. Hi, Patty, how are you?
I'm good, Noelani. It's very good to be with you.
Nice.
I'm really happy to have this chance to be talking to many, many parents. It's just what we love to do.
I know they're really excited. We have people from all over the world viewing us, and I'm really excited about this topic. It's something that I strive to work on, have been for the past 23 years with my daughter, and my bonus children are getting the benefits of me being a calm and cool parent with the hand-in-hand techniques. So that's what we're talking about today. And the first question we have, I think would be helpful for everyone is, what advice would you give new parents to Hand in Hand about the techniques?
Well, our approach is it's unique in the sense that we put as much attention on parents finding a way to get good support for themselves, parents building a way to do that. And we give you the tools to build a support system for handling the emotional work of parenting. So we have excellent parent-child tools that help parents realize the power they have in listening and play, to relieve their children of inner tensions so their children can be on track more of the time and really, be their generous, creative, playful, loving selves more of the time. Nobody's that way all the time, but life can get pretty good when you're using the tools consistently and lifting stresses off of your child that have been there for a while. But we concentrate as much on helping parents lift the stress of parenting off of themselves as we do showing parents how to do that with their children. And that makes this approach really something special. Any parenting approach falls apart when a parent has big feelings that are triggered by their child's behavior. And, you hear that whiny voice in the morning, and all of a sudden, you can't find the love in you for that child. And you also can't find kind words to say, harsh things pop out of your mouth. It's only, 8:15 and you're already upset and it's already kind of a bad day on your end. What do you do about that? And we are the parenting approach that actually has excellent, workable, not easy necessarily, but workable solutions for taking care of ourselves so that we can extend more love to our children. And that's what makes us, that's what really sets Hand in Hand Parenting apart from any other approach out there.
I absolutely love Hand in Hand Parenting. I used it this morning. You were just talking about the whiny little voices when we dropped off kids this morning. It was rough. It's the last day of school, so they were excited but still just a little hesitant to get ready for school. So I used the techniques this morning to be patient, and I just really appreciate it. We have people from all over. We have, it looks like someone from the UK. Romania, out here in California. So I'm really excited. And we have a lot of questions, and we're thrilled that we have so many. And I just want to let everyone out there know whatever we don't get to today, we're going to try to cover on Monday with our 4 other instructors that we have. We're giving you a taste of what the Parent Club is going to look like. So we have your list of questions. We're going to try to answer those on Monday too. And feel free, those of you who are joining us, to ask questions down below. We have moderators. We have Julie and Velma, who are on our staff, wonderful people, who are going to be able to answer your questions right down below too if we don't get to them. So feel free to ask questions. We're going to start off with a question, something a little bit different. It's in regards to foster children, and I know that you've done a lot of work to help parents all over with foster children and adopted children. So the question that we have is, my foster child has huge feelings and tantrums, and it's really hard to manage. What should I do?
Okay. Every foster child is a foster child because there's been emotional crisis in their family, sometimes physical or verbal abuse or neglect as well, that has gotten to an extreme level. And so that child has been through trauma, probably multiple traumas, perhaps trauma that reaches all the way back to, the beginning of their life on earth. And so that's why there are such heavy feelings about so many tiny little things every day. So you, as a foster parent, bless your heart for wanting to extend yourself and your energy to a child who really, really needs it. Thank you for the time and the effort and the love that you're pouring in there, first of all. Second of all, you're doing therapeutic parenting, which is basically parenting a child with a heavier load of need than is usual, often a much heavier load of need. And that means that you need a really robust support system for yourself. Otherwise, your child is going to burn the energy that you have and the initiative you want to take. They're going to burn through that pretty quickly, and you will find yourself with no or little emotional resource with which to meet every day. And your child's emotional needs are not, they will go, if you use the listening tools, special time, play listening, setting limits, and stay listening with your foster child, slowly but surely the wounds inside your child will heal. But it is a long process when traumas are multiple and when they go deep, when children have really been mistreated and abandoned. That kind of abandonment takes time to recover from. It is possible. I've seen it happen, but it takes time and a good amount of energy from parents and other supportive people around the child. So what we would say is that our listening partnerships tool is going to be one that it would be very, very helpful for you to explore. What we do is we invite parents to set up listening time with one another. So if it was you and me, I would give you a half an hour of my warm, open-hearted attention, keeping the attitude in my mind that you do know best. I don't know best about what should happen in your family. You know best. When you're confused or befuddled or just too tired to even think, that knowledge is down deep inside you, and my listening and my approval and my faith in your goodness and faith in your intelligence is going to help you find that understanding of what is the next thing to try, what is the next experiment to do, what is the next initiative to take. You may not find it in my presence while I'm listening to you. That doesn't matter to me. All I care about is giving you enough warm attention that you can feel what's going on inside of you and either reach the feelings that need to be released before you can find your thinking again, or reach the very best thinking that you can get to today. Oftentimes the benefits of a listening partnership come after the listening time is over. It's like you don't come to any solution while you're with your listener, but on the way home or tomorrow morning, somehow you will try something new and different, and it will work way, way better than anything that worked before. And you won't know where it came from, but it comes because you've lightened the emotional burden. And so, what happens in a good listening partnership, one that's been established for a while, in which trust has been built, and it does take time to build deep enough trust to share our biggest feelings with one another. But what happens is I would listen to you for 30 minutes, and then you would turn around and listen to me for 30 minutes, and I would work on my issues in my life, the things that keep me from being intentional and loving and creative in my responses to people around me who are not thinking very well. So we would just exchange this time. You would not give me any advice. I would not give you any advice. There are some things that you can do to help someone reach feelings, and you kind of will figure those out. We have outlined them in our booklet, Listening Partnerships for Parents. And in one of the chapters of the Listen 5 Simple Tools for Meeting Your Everyday Parenting Challenges book, we also have a very thorough video course in how to do listening, with lots of both video and audio clips of parents listening to one another and aiding one another to feel safe enough to really go deep and work deeply, to cry, to tremble, to perspire, trembling and perspiring, offload fear. And oftentimes when we have a child who demands a lot from us, we get scared. We get scared because our resources go so low. We get scared because we worry about what's going to happen to them in the future. We get scared because, there's Uncle Jerry who never made it in the world, and this child reminds you of Uncle Jerry. So we have memories of people who struggled and struggled and struggled and did not have the support they needed. And those memories pop up, although, the child we have here is certainly nothing like, Uncle Jerry. Those memories get in our way and make us afraid. And offloading those fears helps us relax with the child who needs our support and needs our listening. And when we're relaxed, they can offload fears and they can begin to relax. So in a way, taking care of our own feelings on a regular basis is the first step, and probably the most important step that you can take when you're doing therapeutic parenting, when you have any special needs child or any kind of crisis situation happening in your family. And how you find a listening partner, we can help you do that. The Parent Club is designed to gather people who really want to practice, want to focus at least some of their time every week on learning the practice of hand-in-hand parenting, and who want to be together with other people doing the same in an online group. And that group will be moderated. People's questions will be answered. Not every question, but parents will soon be able to, share their experiences with similar circumstances, so that we're building a community of support, both informational. Oh, here's how you use special time when your child just cannot get up in the morning. They cannot face the idea of school. Or here's how you set limits with a child who is just demanding some different dinner than the one that you just served them at the dinner table, and is having a fit about what's on their plate. So we're building a community of support in which there are people who can answer your questions and other similar questions like yours, in which you can ask the questions online, and in which you get input from a variety of instructors. There are many of our instructors who have done and are doing therapeutic parenting. So we have sort of a deep stable of people who have the experience that will be, exactly tailored to what you need, and will know how to explain to you how the process goes. So all I can say is that our parent-child tools will work with your foster child. They are different from the tools that other therapists around your foster child are probably using. Oftentimes, the therapists that are assigned you when your child has special needs are highly trained in behavior modification. and they are giving your child M&Ms or little treats for the behaviors that they desire, and trying to train your child in a positive direction. And our approach is entirely different from behavior modification. We don't think that treats are actually and rewards are actually the deepest motivators of children. They are not what allows a child to think. What allows a child to think is feeling safe and feeling close to you. And you build that closeness through our listening tools. And you build that child's sense of safety. And when a child has been traumatized multiple times in deep ways, that sense of safety erodes very, very fast. And that is just a fact of life. Until they've healed those deep hurts, the sense of safety can disappear when you are bringing them orange juice and it has thingies in it. And they look at the thingies, and all of a sudden, you have failed as a parent, and their feelings are, as high as they get. This also happens to normal children. Let me reassure parents whose children are, squawking at the thingies in their orange juice in the morning. This is not a sign that your child's been traumatized. It happens to every child that they reach. Children want to unload the burden of the hurts that they carry, and they do it through picking the tiniest little pretexts, the tiniest little disappointments, the tiniest little imperfections, and having a huge meltdown over those little tiny imperfections. And this drives parents nuts. It can, here you've done everything you can to make them a nice breakfast, and it's looking beautiful on the table, and you put your time and energy into it. And what are they doing? Throwing themselves on the ground because the orange juice has thingies in it.
Right.
It's just like, that's this is what you do in your listening partnership. It's like, okay, listen to me. Last night, guess what happened? And then you get to unload what happened last night. You get to make, shrieking noises. You get to shake the person who's listening to you by the shoulders as though they were your child. You get to give that lecture that you are so tempted to give, that would really strike your child's heart. And you get to cry really hard about how hard parenting is. And I just can't tell you what a help that is. So that's what I can say.
It's huge. And I know for me, it's been beneficial really in calming me down as a parent and being a little bit more calm and collective. I know my older daughter, I use some of the hand-in-hand techniques for me in order to be able to talk to her about very sensitive subjects. As a 22-year-old, there's subjects we go back and forth from her being, an adult and being my child. So there's a lot of sensitive subjects. So listening partnerships has been beneficial to me to be able to be calm and cool when she says things that I don't understand. So I think that it's instrumental in that. And I think kind of staying with that theme in regards to, calm and cool parenting, one of the questions that we have, and I could have written this question, is, hi, I'm a very loving mom, but I easily get angry and max out with my kids. How do I keep my cool?
Okay. My answer is going to sound repetitious. It's like we are not designed to keep our cool. Once our feelings are ignited, we are designed to offload those feelings. But it's hard on our children, hurtful to our children, when we offload our feelings and aim them at them. You little brat, why did you do this again? I told you not to do this. I've talked to you about this 100 times and you still do it. Are you trying to drive me crazy? All of that installs more hurt on your child and makes it more likely that they are going to be doing things that are off track more of the time. So we know we don't want to lose our cool. We know that's not really us. That's not the person that we want to be or choose to be. But we are designed to offload feelings. Once you have a listening partner in your life, someone on Thursday nights that you talk to after the kids are tucked in, or someone down the street who you think could listen well, and you ask them, hey, would you like to support one another as parents? There's this interesting thing I'd like to try. Here's a little booklet about it. Let's read this and Do you want to try it once or twice and see if you like to do easier? I know the first time that I started doing listening partnerships, neither of my children had slept. I had not had a full night's sleep in 2.5 years. And that in itself is really, it undermines your patience greatly. And I didn't really know how to get my kids to sleep through the night. And I wasn't, I wasn't into sleep training. That was not something I was wanting to do. But I still didn't know how to get a good night's sleep. And all I did was actually, this is back in the old days when people had time. I would did an hour each way with a dad who was in a very, very stressful situation. I hadn't, it's not somebody I knew well, but somebody who wanted to try this. And his wife had just walked out on him and left him with a child with Down syndrome who was 6 months old. And he was an engineer and he didn't know anything about taking care of babies. And his wife just told him, I'm never coming back, and just left. He didn't know where she was. She was not in communication. And he was gray. He just was gray and petrified. So I listened to him for an hour, and he trembled like nobody I'd ever seen tremble before. It's like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anybody tremble like that. But he was so scared to be responsible for his daughter and want to do well and not know how to get any help. And then he listened to me for an hour, and I just talked and talked and talked about, trying to be a good mom and losing it over and over and over again, and being scared I was going to hurt my children. And nothing. I didn't have a good cry. I just talked. Went home and did this for 3 weeks in a row, and miraculously, both my children started sleeping through the night. And all it took was me talking to somebody else for 3 hours about how I felt as a parent, before I was more, and I think they started sleeping through the night because I was more relaxed. I didn't do anything different. But somehow the emotional outlet for me, which wasn't very flashy at all, it was just talking to someone, made this perceptible difference in the peace and well-being of my family. So it's something that I think every human being needs to be listened to. Every human being needs to go to the well to replenish their sense of that they are good, that they are precious, that they can think, that they can solve the problems in their lives as long as they have someone who believes in them. And your job as listening partner is to believe in the other person, to not try to fix it, to believe that they can come through whatever it is they need to come through, and make things better for themselves and those around them. It's like believe in their power. And there's nothing like that warm, positive regard for making things safe and allowing us to unburden ourselves of the tremendous emotional load that we carry because we love our children so much and we want so much for them. And life is really not easy for parents in every practical way. It's not easy. So that's what I would say. It's like you can keep your cool better and better, not by trying really hard to keep your cool and gritting your teeth and holding, taping your mouth and, keeping yourself from saying those impulsive things that, rattle around in your brain. It's like you go say those to your listening partner. You go have that tantrum. You go cry because it's not going well and you don't know how to make it go well. And boy, when you've had a good cry about it's not going well and you'll never figure it out and this is not what you wanted as a parent, when you're finished with that really good cry, you're going to feel relieved. You may not know what to do still, but you're going to go home and do something different and things will move. I'll tell you a little anecdote. There was a dad who came to me who told me this story. I was giving a talk, and he was somebody that I'd known a little bit over the years. And he said, thank you so much for this approach and for teaching it. It's like my 17-year-old daughter, I don't know why she got upset with me. I didn't. And she stopped talking to me. She stopped even looking at me. And we, of course, we live in the same house. We're, a good family, but she just, shunned me. And it went on for like 3 weeks, and it was driving me crazy. She wouldn't look at me. She wouldn't talk to me. I had no idea what was up with her. I didn't know what to do. And I felt really, really bad and worried about this because, something terrible had happened and she wouldn't, I didn't know how to fix anything. So I went to my listening partner and I just said, I don't know what to do. And my listening partner asked me one key question. He just said, what was going on for you when you were 17? And I looked at him and I just began to sob. And I have never cried so hard in my life. And I sobbed for 45 minutes. And I told him about what happened when I was 17. My father told me I was for shit. I shouldn't have, I should have never been born. I was a stupid idiot. He wished he'd never met me. He was ashamed of me, ashamed to go out with me. He just, abused me every single day of my childhood, physical abuse and emotional abuse. And when I was 17, I could feel myself losing my sanity. And I just decided to pack up and leave. I left my home. I left my country. He's an immigrant. I came to this country, and I had a really hard time establishing myself. But all I wanted was for my dad to just be happy with me for one day, and it never happened. And I sobbed so hard about that. Then I went home, and my usual, routine at night is to pass by my daughter's bedroom door, to open the door and say good night, and then close the door again. And so I was intending to do that, and I walked by and I opened the door and I said good night. And then I didn't know why I did this, but I just paused and I walked in and I just sat on her bed. And I didn't say anything. I just sat there. And within 5 minutes, she lay down on the bed, put her head in my lap, and was crying and crying and telling me all of the upsets that had made her, unable to talk to me for the last 3 weeks. So we just somehow do better with the people around us when we've unburdened ourselves. And oftentimes the feelings that interfere in our ability to connect with our children are feelings that come from our own childhoods. It's like our children trigger stresses that we have never recovered from, that lie deep in our childhoods. And we don't know this until someone gives us a chance to talk for a while so that we can think about, well, why is it that when my children fight with each other, it just makes me want to rip their heads off? Why am I so, violently inclined when this particular thing happens? I wonder. And then your listening partner could ask that question, well, what was happening when you and your siblings weren't getting along? What did your parents do? It's like, oh, wow, I don't even remember what my parents did, but all I know is they couldn't stand to have us fight. And sometimes the memories are so painful that we've buried them. It takes a while to uncover them again. But once you are remembering the things that are similar to the things that drive you nuts, in the present moment, the things that are similar in your childhood, you actually have a way to dig out the hurt that's really the boulder in the communications pathway between you and your child. So,
Right. Patty, this is really instrumental. I think, we've had a lot of comments in the comment feed about not sleeping, about, the frustration of parenting. And one thing I think we should definitely say is you're not alone out there.
oh, yeah.
All of us are experiencing that, and we don't really talk about it. It took me 23 years almost to talk about my frustrations, and, listening partnerships was invaluable to me, and the techniques for hand in hand. And today we're sharing these techniques and explaining about our parent club that is just been instrumental. It's opened up now, and I personally, even as the interim CEO, I've been able to go in and talk about the challenges that I've had with my daughter and my bonus kids, that I've been able to talk about those things. And what I always say, and I say this often, is, if Hand in Hand can take my daughter, who she and I were very, very close all through her growing up, and then all of a sudden at 18, she stopped talking to me. We talked when we needed to. And for 3 years, I didn't hear I love you from her. With listening partnerships, with the techniques of special time, I was able to, hear that from her again. And if that can happen, then I think that we can help everyone. And the Parent Club especially is that spot. So for those of you who aren't sleeping, for those of you who are having difficult times, come and join us in the Parent Club. And I think this kind of transitions us into the next question. I know that I have this problem, and I'm probably not the only one. It's how to stop the internal story of guilt in parenting.
Okay. For many of us, getting out from under feelings of guilt is an emotional project. It's something that we work on, fairly regularly because it crops up again and again. There are certain backgrounds or certain traditions in families that instill a lot of guilt, the hurt of guilt over and over again. So, it's and it's no fun to live with it. It doesn't help us enjoy parenting when we feel again and again like we haven't done well enough, or when we keep remembering, the things that we've done when we've been at our most stressed. So first of all, I think that perspective is necessary. It's like we parents, I don't know a parent. I've known a lot of people and listened to thousands of parents over my 40 years of using listening, many thousands of parents, many thousands of times. And there is not one single person I can think of who hasn't done their very best at every moment. Even when we are just nuts with upset, we're still doing the best that we can. And what we need to also understand is that for most parents who are not in the middle of societal chaos, who are not, trying to operate under conditions of war or under, horribly stressful, oppressive conditions, we do a better job with our children than our parents did with us. If you think back at the times your parents lost it with you and the ways they lost it with you, although you see shadows of those behaviors in your own relationship with your child, because when we can't think, our brains fall back on the stuff we've seen, which is often not the best. So we do replay the things that happened to us. We do tell our children the critical things that our parents told us when they were upset and had no support. Although we do that, almost every generation of parents, does a lighter version or less of the hurtful stuff. And some of us are able to stop the cycle of abuse, dead in its tracks. The more support you have, the better your chance of really climbing out from under the guilt that you feel and just enjoying your children. So with guilt, a listening partnership is essential because guilt is a feeling. You can't make feelings go away. When they get installed inside you, that's where they are. And the way you can get out from under a habitual feeling is to offload the emotional tension that's with it. So to offload the fear that you've done irreparable harm, to offload the grief about having gotten so lost or so stressed or having been left so alone with such a big job, having the grief about being targeted by racism or sexism or able-bodiedism, the things that undermine our faith in ourselves and make us more vulnerable to losing it with our children. So, there are a lot of societal conditions that, that bear down on our ability to be sweet with our children. And just having a good cry about how awful it is to have done, harsh things to our children, how worried we feel, how scared we got at the times of strain and stress in which those things happened, just to go back and tell the story. And what really has made a difference for me, I carry a lot of this. And what has made a big difference to me is to be able to have my listener hear me talk to my child or talk to the sister in my family who didn't make it, who I wanted to save but had no idea how. And just to be able to apologize to them from the bottom of my heart and sob and sob and sob and tremble and tremble and tremble, remembering how helpless I felt, remembering how, what stress I was under when those hard things happened. So being granted the chance to make my apology and release the feelings of helplessness and hopelessness and fear really allows us to settle back into ourselves, to accept the fact that we didn't have enough support and our parents didn't have enough support. And this is the human condition. We are trying to, what hand in hand parenting is doing actually is trying to create a tradition of expecting to build support around the work of parenting, expecting to, show parents how they can just reach out for help when they find themselves sinking, when they find themselves overwhelmed with the job of parenting, how to build a culture of people reaching out and assisting one another again and again, often through listening, but sometimes through bringing meals or, doing childcare. But the listening partnership is really unloading the emotional burdens so that we feel better about ourselves and so that we can see that even though we did hit or slap or yell or, lock our child in their bedroom, even though we did that, we came back, we apologized, and now we are mending the hurt. Now we are offering special time, we're offering play listening, we're rebuilding the part of the relationship that got frayed when we went, out of our minds with stress. It happens to every single parent. It's happened to me many times. There are traumas that my children are, that I can see the effects in their life that come from those times when, although I had these tools, I didn't have enough support and I hadn't worked enough on my own hurts to climb out of it fast enough. And however, we can be good enough. And so listening partnership is really, and a good perspective. It's like just holding on to the idea that we are the best person for our child. And it's our responsibility if we're, too stressed too often to find sources of help, to ask for help, even though it kills us on the inside, to cry and cry and cry about, I can't ask one more time for help, or what if they turn me down? I've laid my soul open and they say, no, I can't help you. Will I survive that answer of no? It's like a lot of us don't ask for help because we feel we couldn't stand to be rejected, if we open ourselves to be that vulnerable. And we can, we can cry and cry and cry about a rejection, pick ourselves back up and go ask a different person. So that's my answer, is to unload enough of the hurt to be able to take action to actually build a better life now. What guilt does, it prevents us from taking initiative. It keeps us feeling hopeless and helpless, and bad. And when we feel badly about ourselves, it's really hard to build the supportive, cooperative relationships that our family needs in order to have the ring of support, both that you give support to others and then they give support to you. You take care of their kids and then they take care of your, the child that, needs to be with somebody else some of the time so that you can love them better. That until you've worked enough on your relationship with that child that that you're better with them much of the time.
Right. And you know that we hear this all the time. We have that quote, it takes a village to, to raise a child. But that village is not just raising that child. It's also supporting the parents, whether it's, like you're saying, listening to you, doing a listening partnership, bringing meals, because parenting is a difficult job. And, we so rarely talk about the difficulties of parenting. And I think that, not only is Hand in Hand teaching us those techniques on how to be great parents, like we had one parent, Natalie, say, she knows that she is a kind parent, and these techniques help her be a better parent every day and remind her of those things. So, the Parent Club on a daily basis provides that. You go into the Parent Club, all of these people are saying what a great mother you are, even are a great father. Even when you lose your cool, you're able to go in there and say, I had a really rough day, and parents are picking you up. So you have that parenting community. You get these Facebook Lives that we're doing now to be able to ask Patty one-on-one questions beforehand or with instructors. You get information on a daily basis, on a weekly basis with our best advice ever. And all of the support really helps you and helps your family so that you're building a whole person. And that's what I really love about Hand in Hand. We have a few questions here. We have viewers again from all over. So we have a few questions that were inside the chat. One of the questions is, and this is, I have my bonus kids are 16 and 9-year-old daughters, and then I have a 7-year-old son. And so this question is also very close to my constant sibling bickering, setting boundaries calmly and effectively for my 6 and 3-year-old.
Okay. First of all, we've got a couple of articles about siblings. We talked a lot about siblings yesterday, so you could look at the video from the Facebook Live yesterday. There's a lot about the two articles are, it's something like building sibling friendships or supporting sibling friendships, and the other one is something about sibling rivalry. And there's a lot of information in those two articles. There's also a lot of good sibling anecdotes in the Listen 5 Simple Tools book, and we have I think it's $39 video, which if you're in the Parent Club, you get at a discount on building sibling friendships. So, and the video has lots and lots of anecdotes in it. So those are our resources on siblings. The thing that is hardest to do is to keep our cool when, siblings kind of rock our emotional core, bring up lots of feelings. And what I want to do here is I want to say 3 strategies for, I think the thing to know is that you can't fix a sibling squabble. You can time turns with the coveted toy. You can forbid a child to go in the other child's room or touch the other child's stuff, but then you're not always patrolling, so it happens anyway when children are impulsive and just, want to tee off their sibling. So the fixes that you try to apply often don't stick. They kind of peel off like an old Band-Aid. It is a better use of your time to go in and take a position inside yourself as fully as you can that you guys can figure this out, and to go in and keep, physically keep them from hurting one another, which may mean, having a hand on 2 tummies and, making sure there's 18 inches of space between these 2 bodies that are kind of wanting to flail at one another. And just allowing the emotions to roll. It's like there's nothing like a good cry to help a child get back into their own best thinking. And the reason that they are at loggerheads is because of feelings on the inside. It's not because of the coveted toy. It's not because there aren't good enough policies about who can go into and touch someone else's stuff. It's really not that. It's sort of seething upsets that have been laid in over time and that need to be heard. And so if you can go in, keep them from doing harm to one another, and just say, okay, I'm going to listen to your sister, and then I'm going to listen to you. I'm sorry I can't do both at the same time. Tell me what happened. And then you get the crying and the fighting and the belly aching and the grievances on this side. And you get crying and fighting and belly aching and grievances happening on this side because your head is turned, a quarter, a quarter of the radius of a circle over here. And they're not getting your full attention. And you just let all of that pour out from both sides. You listen as best you can. And after 3 minutes over here, you go, okay, I'm going to listen to your brother now. Here I go. And you turn your head a quarter of a turn. And this one, is crying and fighting and, raging away over here. And this one is telling you all their grievances and the fact that the other kid didn't tell you it right. This is the real story. And you just listen for 3 minutes here. And then you go, okay, I think your sister needs me to listen to her again. Here I go. And you go back. It's like, and you just, you let the feelings pour out. And inside, it's like what this takes is believing that children are good, believing they want to get along, believing that they have an instinctive process that just needs to be allowed to happen, where you provide caring and interest and respect, and they scrub out all of the yuck that's in there that keeps making sure that every half hour there's another issue between them. Those squabbles are there because there are big chunks of feelings that just never get heard. So you don't fix it. Don't set up turns. Don't try to make it look better. Don't worry about, the father-in-law who's over, in the other room wondering what is all the chaos and why is it lasting so long. It's like, this kind of chaos is very, very good. It's cleansing, it's healing, it restores children to their best selves if you can pour in caring. So your attitude here, you can't, you can possibly do it through gritted teeth, but it just doesn't work so well, because the more warmth and relaxation you can pour towards your children, the more they can internalize that warmth and relaxation and then shine it on one another afterwards. While you're listening, children do not look like there's any effect to what you're doing. As a matter of fact, the better you listen, the more intense their feelings get for a long time, because there's a lot of stuff that's been backed up behind that dam of be a good kid now, don't show me all of that stuff. And the pressure is great to offload feelings. So the first few times you listen to children who are squabblers, it's going to be a long listen. Just figure that, just think of it as a good long poop, that they've been emotionally constipated for quite a while. And now that you're listening, they feel safe enough. They can unload a lot. And it's not stuff you want inside of them. It's stuff you want out and diffused and taken care of. So just a little anecdote here. My sons were fighting over how loud their tape player should be. They decided on a tape they wanted to hear, but one wanted the tape loud and one wanted the tape soft. And I went in and I just thought, oh man, what am I going to do about this? And so I just said, okay, guys, I don't know how you're going to resolve this, but I know you can figure this out. So I'm going to make the tape go loud for a little while. Here we go. And the kid who wanted it loud was all, happy and satisfied. And the child who wanted it soft was just screaming, it's too loud, and crying and jumping up and down. And I listened to him for 3 minutes. And then I said, okay, now I'm going to make it soft. And he wasn't finished, but I went ahead and made it soft. And the one who wanted it loud was now crying because he couldn't hear it. And his brother was screaming and he was missing the music, and cry, 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 cry. So for 3 minutes we did that. And then I said, okay, you can have it loud now. It's your turn. And I made it loud again. And this one cried and cried and cried. It was hurting his ears. We went back and forth 3 times. And by that time, they both had done the crying they needed to do in order to think. And they said, like, I don't know, 4 words to each other about where it could be, somewhere in the middle, and went on to play. It was just over, done with. Cooperation could now happen. Now they were in sync with one another because I'd poured in caring and confidence and warmth. They looked like they were suffering the whole time they were receiving it, but it does get received, and you get all those feelings out of the way. It goes chunk, falls into place, and you have children who can get along. But what happens to you when you can't do that? So what do you do? There are 3 strategies that are outlined in the Listen 5 Simple Tools for to solve your everyday parenting challenges. And I'm just going to briefly say that you can do a little fire drill, sort of an emotional fire drill. Like, here's what happens when daddy gets mad. I'm going to try really hard not to yell and not to shout and not to blame you guys. I don't want to do that. Surely there's better stuff to do. So when I get mad and I'm trying to keep myself from hurting your feelings, I am gonna jump up and down like this. Here I do. And then you just do a little comic opera version of jumping up and down. And then I'm gonna go to my angry spot. And then you choose a spot in the house where you can slam against the wall with your hand, or punch a punching bag in the garage, or, beat on the bed with a pillow, or you just find a place where you can let it out physically, and you say, okay, then I'm going to go into this place, and here's what I'm going to do. And then you do a comic opera version of slamming on the bed with a pillow, or slamming on the wall like this, and I'm going to go, and that's what I'm going to do, so that I'm not yelling at you. And you just do this little fire drill a couple of times, and then children will often laugh if you're light enough about it. They'll think you're pretty silly and pretty funny. But then when you start getting hot under the collar, you just go, oh, I have to go to my angry spot. Sorry. And you might close the door, or you might leave the door open, but you don't say the words in your mind. You just let the noise out, and what helps us recover our ability to stay in charge is letting some of that physical energy out. It reminds us that we are grown-ups, not victims in the situation, to be able to use our power. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is to set up a little self-help routine for your children if they are 3 years or older. You put the phone numbers of 3 or 4 people who they could call when you are angry and awful with them. You paste it on the wall. You teach them how to use your phone, and you say, okay, Barbara and David and Sally said that they would listen to you if I'm getting mad and yelling at you. So if I start doing that, you just go get the phone. Here's how you make a call. You sort of do a little practice call. And then your child is empowered to talk to somebody when you are, off your rocker. And what you would instruct your child to do is to talk to, Barbara or David or Sally, and say, my dad needs you to listen to them, and then they hand the phone to you. And this will make you even madder to have somebody witness how upset you are. But it will also help you get closer to the tears and the upset that you need to shed with another grown-up in order to keep your children safe. And the third strategy, I think, for when we lose our cool, and sort of the most unusual and the most interesting one, is just lying down on the floor wherever you are. If you're in the park and your kids are driving you nuts, just lie down on the sand or the grass. Lie down in the laundry room. Where the washer has overloaded, there's sudsy water all over the floor. You told somebody to fix this damn machine and they didn't do it. You've had a hard day. The cat's been throwing up. You can't find the money to take him to the vet. Mm-hmm. And your child is whining for something, and you are over. You are gone. You just lie down. Lie down. Give up being a parent. As long as the front door is closed and your children aren't going to run out into a busy street, lie down.
Right.
Even if they're hurting one another, and you know that if you interfered, you would cause additional hurt on top of that, lie down. What that does is it takes you out of the I'm supposed to be in control position, which is very useful for your children and for you. Because when you were trying to be in control, you couldn't be. You weren't in control at all of your own feelings, and not your fault, but that's the fact. So you might as well acknowledge the fact by lying down. Second of all, it makes you much more available for your children to notice that something different is happening here. Well, mom is lying on the floor.
Yeah.
Mommy, what are you doing? And even though they've been all involved with each other and, ripping each other's hair out, if you're lying down, they're going to come find you. And it's going to, because it's so different, it's going to shake things up. It's going to pull them out of their upsets with one another because something so new and novel is happening that they come back into their thinking minds. And children will find a way to reconnect with you when you're lying on the floor. So one mom wrote in, it was so interesting because I just recommended this. I'd actually known about this idea for quite a few years, but somehow it just didn't connect that I should ever share it. So I finally shared it. 2 weeks later, somebody wrote in on the Yahoo group saying, I thought this was a wonderful idea, and I've been looking for something to help myself. And I even told my husband about it. If you see me lying down suddenly, it's because I'm losing it, and I don't want to be harsh with the kids, and I can't do anything rational. And so 2 weeks after I'd kind of clued him in, my children were they were fighting over who should be first. And I was getting into it, and I was beginning to blame one of them. And I realized I was blaming an awful, and I just dropped to the floor right there. And I thought, that I would probably, if I did this, I thought I would probably cry, because I'd be so beside myself. But I was on the floor for 15 seconds, and all of a sudden I started laughing so hard. I hadn't laughed that hard in years. There were tears streaming down my face. I was laughing and laughing, and my husband started laughing, and my children started laughing, and pretty soon we all were laughing. We didn't even know why we were laughing, but it was just the funniest thing. There's all this release of pent-up tension, but this time in laughter. And she said, after 5, it was so fun to lay there that, she didn't hurry back up. But when she got back up, it's like there was no problem at all. People were really in with each other nicely. So you don't really know what's going to happen. Some people lie down and then they feel like kicking the floor. So they kick and then they begin to cry or they begin to tremble or I don't. It's just good to get out of I'm in charge position and then just see what happens. Just see what happens. It's better than, being hard on your kids and then feeling horrible about it after.
Gina in the group commented, "Oh, how I wish I had someone like Patty in my life." Trust me, all of us do. And we can give you
Well, you do have me in your life. Here I am. And I don't know. For people in the parent club, I really make myself available on videos, and there's my book, and it's not just me. It's really good information, and I'm really happy to support you. And in the parent club, we'll be in touch once every 4 or 5 weeks. So
right. And that's great. That's why we are so grateful to be able to share this with everyone. The Parent Club is just $15 a month if you sign up before June 22nd.
It's 15. It sounded like 50.
15. Thank you. So $15 a month. And not only do you get Patty every 4 to 5 weeks, but you also get an instructor every week that will be able to either on Facebook Live on our conference call answer questions that you might have. You have that supportive parent group right there that's in private. It's a safe space for you to share information, for you to talk about difficulties you might be having, but we don't only talk about difficulties. One of the things that we do is every Wednesday we talk about things that went really, really well, and people just cheer you on. So that parent club is an extension of Patty's. So Gina, make sure you join us. It's just absolutely amazing. We had originally scheduled to stop after an hour, but Patty and I both have some extra time left, so we're going to try to cover some more questions. So all you viewers out there, feel free to ask questions down below. I have a viewer. I'm going to address her question now. Her name's Jenna. She says she has a 3-year-old son who has very aggressive tantrums, and when he doesn't get his way, and he kicks and hits. Do you have any suggestion on how I can deal with it in a cool, calm manner?
Sure. Again, this is repetitious, but it's repetitious because it works, and I don't know anything else that is as reliable as this answer. Some people use meditation, but and maybe I'm just not the meditation person, but I think what meditation does is it gives your mind a practiced detour away from roiling feelings. And so it helps you hang on to a good perspective when you're under stress, but it doesn't eliminate the feelings that get triggered every time. It's like they start getting triggered again, and you use your well-practiced detour if you're a meditator. But sometimes you just can't. It's like there's too many feelings and they've been ignited too often, and all of a sudden you're in trouble again. The thing that over time does lower your emotional load and make you very much more emotionally resilient under stress is listening partnerships. And what we see with parents who have a regular listening partnership practice is they feel like they have wonderful allies they can depend on. They make arrangements with their listening partners so that, hey, my son's going through a big thing right now because school is starting and he's really scared and he's all over the place. Can I call you between the hours of 3 and 5 when it gets the hardest? And could you give me like 5 minutes of listening time? And then, I will return the 5 minutes either then or another time as quickly as I can. And people make these agreements to help one another out during moments of stress. And getting the listening you need right when you need it makes us feel so much more able and stable in the world. So building a few listening partnerships, you can't build, I don't know, it takes a while to figure out what a listening partnership is, to build that kind of safety. And then it's like, wow, this is really good. I want to build some more. So then people build a second listening partnership for Sunday mornings when they have a little time and their partner can take the kids. And then there's people just build out the support they need until they are sailing well. And this makes a huge difference. So ask me the question again. I'm sorry, I kind of lost my track of where I need to go next.
It's okay. So, oh goodness. So Jenna asked, my 3-year-old son has very aggressive tantrums when he doesn't get his way. He kicks and hits. Okay. So suggestions on how to deal with that in a cool, calm way.
Okay. So that's the first thing, because you can't be cool and calm. You don't have control over when your feelings get triggered. You don't have control over how many feelings or how intense the feelings are that get triggered. Those are things but you can change their circumstances by unloading the feelings with someone else, so that your emotional load is not so high. Second thing is to understand that when your child is in the middle of a big emotional moment like that, he is doing his very best to get his thinking brain going again. Children do not tolerate being roiled by emotions. And when a child is kicking and hitting and struggling and crying, what they are trying to unload is fear and grief. And fear is, in a way, the stickiest emotion. It is the the emotion that causes aggression. It's the emotion that causes us to be harsh with one another. It is the emotion that if we could show everybody in the world how to unload it, would in a generation or two make it so much more possible to have peaceful solutions to very complex and difficult problems. So learning to unload fear, learning to help your child do that, not only helps your child and makes life easier for you, but what you're doing is developing a person who is less loaded with fear, who can be part of really solving important problems in the world when they grow up. You're really making the world a better place in a significant way when you help your 3-year-old, get through these emotional moments. We call this a tantrum when they're kicking and hitting and coming at us and crying and furious, but it's not, technically, it's not really a tantrum. In my book, or the way I like to think about it, tantrums are offloading frustration. And when children are just offloading frustration, they kind of are trying to get a puzzle piece in the puzzle and they just can't make it fit. And they've tried it, 7 different ways. And all of a sudden, their brain cannot do any more learning. The frustration of not getting it right all of a sudden goes over the top. And they throw the puzzle, or they throw themselves down on the ground and they kick and they throw themselves around and they get all hot. And there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of physical movement, but it's not aimed at anybody. It's, they're not mad at anybody. They are just jumping out of their skin. It's like, and we have this frustration ourselves when a computer program isn't working right, or all of a sudden our keyboard, fails right in the middle of trying to get an assignment finished on time. And we just want to throw the darn thing through the window. And we just are impulsively wanting to jump up and down and do something and yell. That's a tantrum. When children are coming at you and aggressive and angry and upset, and they're crying, but there's very little tears, and sometimes they're just trembling with upset, that is the offload of fear. So I think your 3-year-old is trying to offload fear rather than just frustration, although sometimes, a big emotional episode starts with frustration and then goes into, suddenly it becomes aggressive. So if you listen well at first, maybe the safety rises and then they start coming at you because now they're working on fear. They've sensed that you're listening well enough and they really want to get rid of the places where they're panicked underneath it all. And so your job there is to just keep them safe, keep them from, hitting themselves on the head or hitting their heads on the floor. You just put your hand underneath their head. So if they're banging their heads on the floor, they're hitting your hand, not the floor.
Right.
And if they're kicking and kicking, you just say, sweetie, I'm going to take off your shoes, right here. I'm going to take off one shoe now. Now I'm going to take off the other shoe. So you tell them what you're going to do. You take off their shoes so that they can kick away, but they're not going to, bruise you. If they're trying to scratch you, you just say, I need to hold your hand, sweetie. I can't let you scratch my face. I'm right here. You get to fight. I know it's really hard. I'll stay with you. Mm-hmm. You just say a few, it's like there's an article on our website called What to Say During Stay Listening, that gives you an idea of the reassuring things that you can say that help your child understand that you are thinking, you are on their side, you have some idea of what they're doing, that this is a process, a cleansing process, a healing process, that you are their willing partner in this process, that you will stay with them while they have to feel these awful, panicky, terrible, I'm really threatened and I have to fight back feelings. You will stay with them. You will support them. You understand this is not who they are. You understand this is a huge feeling passing through and getting out so that they can be more relaxed in their everyday life on the inside. So your perspective there is very, very important. If while your child is in the midst of all of this, all of a sudden they happen to swat you in the face, and this reminds you of physical abuse that you suffered when you were small and you all of a sudden are seeing red, you should get up and back away. Because when you can't think and you are angry with your child, or scared of this whole process, and you're thinking that Patty Whitfler lady is so full of bull, and I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do some other other parenting practice. This is just way too hard. If those are the thoughts you're having and you can't pay attention to your child, get up and back away. You're scared, your feelings have been triggered, and you're no longer a listener. So don't try to pretend to be a listener while your child is going through huge feelings of panic and fear, when you can't. But if you can, stay with them, support them, assume that what they're doing is really the smartest thing they could be doing right now. That it's going to have healing properties that are going to benefit both of you when they're done. They will come out of it sooner or later. The first time you go through something like this, usually it's pretty long because your child has been signaling you that they're scared over and over and over and over again, and you didn't think to listen. Nobody's modeled this for it, so of course you didn't think to listen. It's like, what's listening? It's nothing. Nothing. There's nothing going on there. You can't see it. You can't weigh it. You can't measure it. It's not well understood in Western culture, but it is very, very powerful healing force. And if you can hang in and just go, I'm going to keep on trying this. I'm going to see what happens. Your child will come out relaxed, feeling very close to you, feeling like they love you. They've kind of got their capacity to love back. All they want to do is cooperate and draw pictures of you being wonderful and them being happy. So that's what to do in the moment, is stick with him, keep him safe, say some reassuring things, and don't expect that when you say just the right thing, they're going to go, oh, thank you, mommy.
Mm-hmm.
They never do that. Never. They'll thank you when they're 25.
So 2 more years, right? I have 2 more years.
But in the moment, they just, get up, are, peachy keen and eager to have a great day, and they go off and they reward you with how they are, not with what they say. So I think that's the picture.
Right. And someone asked, and I'll tell my quick little story, but someone asked, is it productive to have a listening partnership with your spouse? So I have to say that I have the most amazing partner ever. Albert is fantastic, and no one can tell me any different. He's the world's best partner. But what I found is there's times that he definitely can sit and listen. Actually, all the time he does that. But the work that I've done with my listening partner has been really instrumental in getting to those deeper places for me to really look at where I want to go as a parent and really get those things out. And then I'm able to talk to him after. But can you give a little bit more information on whether or not it's productive for people?
Sure. And the answer is it depends. In general, when two people are parenting children together, the same issue triggers feelings on both sides. So you need to work on, how upsetting it is that you've got a bedwetter and you don't know what to do and you're doing all this laundry. And on the other end, your partner was a bedwetter when they were young, or their brother was a bedwetter and it was this huge issue in their family, and they get all triggered, every time they hear the word bedwetting, and so you bring up bedwetting because that's the thing you really need to work on. And all of a sudden your partner is trying to solve it for you, or they are getting agitated because it's not solved yet and they're not able to be a listener. So the problem is not that, they're not a good person or don't have the capacity to listen. It's that the triggers are almost precisely the same for both parents. And sometimes one parent is, able to do listening, and the other parent has a ways to go before they can learn to listen well. They've been a problem solver for a long time, or they've been a nonstop talker for a long time, and they just don't really know how to settle in and trust that their listening will do something. So we advise that people learn to do this, and there is a learning process and an art to it, that they do their learning for, say, 6 months or 8 months with a listening partner that is not intimately involved in their life. And once you've kind of got the hang of it, and once I think the other thing that happens in the first part of a listening partnership is that we have found hundreds of ways to stop ourselves from laughing too much, from crying out loud, from showing our anger, and certainly from trembling in any kind of fear. The only time we tremble is when we have to stand up and give a talk to 20 people, and then, our knees are shaking and we're all, sweaty under the arms. All that is a sign that we're offloading fear, but that's the only time we ever feel anything like trembling. So our bodies have shut this process down over and over and over again, many thousands of times. And it takes a while to kind of find your way back to feeling okay about having someone else present while your feelings are pouring out. And it's better to kind of unpack all that with someone who you're not in daily contact with. And I know my generation is more tightly packed than some of the generations coming up, where people have been more permissive about emotional signs of emotion. But generally, for guys, the tight packing down of emotions is it's much harsher, and it has been much more dangerous for boys and young men to show emotion than it has been for girls and young women. So for dads, it often takes a longer time to build the safety to actually be able to, freely cry, or freely say and feel scared. So it's good to do that with someone outside the family. And then once you have practiced as a listener, once you have learned how to keep, the impulse to advise, down so that you're not acting on it, then you can start doing little 5-minute each way turns with one another, just to try it out. It is very useful. It's like your partner, if you can feel their love or feel their commitment, sometimes you can do the very deepest, emotional release work with someone who is that committed to you. And sometimes you can't. So it really depends on the relationship, on who you chose, on the work you've done together, as to how much of this work you can do with a partner. But I can say that even with the most sort of listening resistant partner, there are ways and times when, they can be your ally and can really make this huge, significant difference at a very critical moment, so that they can let you cry and tremble and just care and not try to fix it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think too, even with the most listening partner too, like for me, there are times when you do need that outside person to help you get to other spaces. So I think, like you were saying, it just depends. We have about 10 more minutes left, I think. I have a question here that deals with a child who has ASD and ADHD. So this parent said it's been emotionally draining for her, that she's
Clarify that. Is this the child with autism spectrum disorder?
Yes. Yeah. So it's her 8-year-old son who is having more of a difficult time. And with her 2 kids, her other kids, she's been able to really see how beautifully our techniques have worked. So she's trying to see how these techniques can also work with her son.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. We don't, let's see, we have some experience working with parents whose children are on the autism spectrum. And what I will say up front is that the various things causing the symptoms of autism, there seem to be several different causes, or there may be several different causes. And one of the things that happens there sometimes is that children on the autism spectrum do have big cries at times. They do go deeply into their feelings, and sometimes it lifts a little bit of the a little bit of the symptoms of the being on the autism spectrum disorder. In other words, after a big cry, they can make better eye contact. They are wanting to say more. They are more relaxed and less anxious for a while. But oftentimes the anxiety rolls back in and the symptoms roll back in and kind of capture them again. And we have an article which we don't publish on our website because it's not within our area of expertise precisely, on what happens if you are using the tools consistently with a child and they are doing a lot of crying and emotional release, a lot of laughter, and their behavior does not really improve over time, even though it should be, given the healing properties of being listened to through emotional release, including laughter. Then sometimes we have seen that a child is also sensitive to foods or environmental substances, toxins, and what happens when they are triggered by foods or environmental influences like toxins, like perfumes or food dyes or MSG. What happens is that their body is kind of in a constant state of dealing with substances that don't agree with them on the inside, and those substances seem to have an influence on a child's behavior. So you can write to info@handinhandparenting.org, and we will send you a little article that outlines sort of our anecdotal experience with this kind of thing happening, which can indicate that a change in diet or, it's kind of figuring out which kinds of environmental influences send your child reeling and then stopping their exposure to those substances can really help. It can make it so that all of the listening and the crying and the emotional release they're doing actually does change their behavior, because there isn't this complicating factor of, toxic stress on their bodies. Because it's not our area of expertise, we don't publish that, but when we find that a parent might need it, we will send it out and ask you not to distribute it. Just take it for your own information. But with children with autism, it's good to start with special time. It's good to climb into the kind of play they're doing, even if it seems really, really patterned. Just climb right in. You want to offer connection and warmth and acceptance of where they are, and if they want to flap their hands, then you can be pleased with that and figure they're the best hand flapper on the block. And some people recommend that you do it also, that you kind of see, well, what is cool about flapping your hands, and I don't know, just find ways to not necessarily mirror what the child is doing, but to climb in with them with as much attention as you can, and to see if there are games you can play that let them laugh, and to hunt for what does let them laugh, and see if you can promote laughter, because laughter is one of the strongest connectors between human beings, and it's a deep relaxant and a very powerful emotional release. There is something just wonderful about being alive when you can laugh with someone. It is really, actually, Aristotle thought that laughter was what distinguished human beings from all the other animals. And now we find out that rats actually giggle when you tickle them. So I'm not sure that we are the only animals that laugh, but it is there's quite a powerful effect there. And when you've built in these, times that you really connect with 100% of your attention, then setting a limit with a child who's on the autism spectrum so that they can't have, the 75th strawberry of the day, or so that they've been flapping and flapping and kind of off in their own little world, and you bring them in close and you say, come on, I want you over in my lap for a little cuddle. And, cuddling is the last thing they want to do. They're really allergic to physical touch. I think what happens is that children have such an intense feeling of isolation because of the way the differences in their brain. The intense feeling of isolation is very, very hard on them. But anytime someone gets close enough to challenge that sense of isolation, really bad feelings come up. It feels really scary to be closer than what's comfortable, or to have someone want you in a very open way. And you could experiment with bringing your child in close for just 5 minutes and letting them fight and cry and fight and cry, and just, I'm right here. I know this is hard, but I want you to feel that I'm here. I want you to feel my love. Let's try this. I'll let you go in a little while. And you could try that and see what the effect is. I will not tell you that that is the thing to do, because I don't think we as collectively have enough experience with this. I have some myself, and the results are mixed. I think children with autism are individuals, and we just don't have the anecdotal experience to be able to tell you more than that it's okay to experiment. It's okay to try to get close, even though your child is pushing you away. When we do this with children who have spent a month in the NICU, and therefore were not cuddled and not cradled and not in close physical contact, every time we get in and cuddle them and cradle them, they need to cry. It's like it was so lonely back there. And being in closer than they were during their first month brings up all of these heavy, heavy feelings. And for those children, it is deeply, deeply healing to be cradled and cuddled and listened to while they cry through the emotional, it's just the emotional leftovers of having felt so abandoned. I mean, their lives were saved, but, they need to work through that until they can be close without feeling that early loneliness. And I think that it may be the same for children on the spectrum, or at least some number of them. And it would be okay to try it and learn your child in that way.
Right.
I'm not sure it's the right thing to do, but you do get to experiment and see what you think.
Right. Well, and we will be able to at least give you support in the parent club. So just these Facebook Lives like this one that Patty's doing now, answering individual questions, are built into that parent club, along with discounts and our setting limit class and our private Facebook group for that support that you're looking for. So it's just coming up on 10:30, and I know that Julie, you and I have some things that we have to go and do today, but I just want to say, Patty, thank you so much for coming out here and doing this for the last 3 days. We can't thank you enough for your time and all the amazing revolutionary work that you've done for the past 30 years.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to being part of the parent club and getting to peek in and see how everybody's doing, and really build a community of parents helping one another and themselves and their children.
Well, we're looking forward to it too. And just so everyone knows who's watching right now, Julie Eidelman and myself will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. and at 1 p.m. interviewing parents who have used the hand-in-hand technique, talking about their successes and their frustrations, and getting you to really join us in that parent club. Then this weekend is Father's Day in America, and then on Monday we will have 4 instructors that will be doing an hour at a time, so that you can see what kind of instructors we have and what kind of support you can get. So Patty, again, thank you so much for everything that you do for us, and thank you to all the viewers out there. We will see you tomorrow at 9. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, good parents.